100% agree.
I don't think they'd even have much of an impact on a grizzly bear. Like, you got to think as well that these other animals are used to fighting each other. So, like, if a wolf can beat a wolf in a fight, or can withstand an attack from a wolf, and a bear can withstand an attack from a bear, then I don't think it. But I can see where you're going from. Aerial defense, perhaps some tactical airdrops,
I'm taking,
care package.
I'm taking the three grizzlies.
Well, I'm taking probably the man with the gun.
No, he's just dead. He's just like.
Yeah, but he's got distance. It depends how quickly he can reload. Depends what kind of gun it is.
Don't forget the rest are coming to kill you. So
All
everything
at the same
else,
time.
Everything else is coming to get you.
Yeah, true. He's drawing dead. Okay,
He's
I'll
drawing
take 5 gorillas and
5 gorillas. Wow, man, I don't know. I've seen.
I'll take 5 gorillas and 15 wolves because I think wolves are great pack hunters. Like 15 wolves against 3 bears. It's GG, isn't it?
That's fair.
5 wolves per bear. Even 4 lions. I think 15 wolves would have a hell of a fight against 4 lions. 5 gorillas. There's not much on that list that 5 gorillas are going to be troubled by.
I'm not sure. I've seen like some close encounters of gorillas against bears. I don't think gorillas do that well against grizzlies.
No, but the wolves can take the grizzlies, and then the gorillas can just like grab eagles out of the sky and smash them around on the floor. Pick up an alligator by its tail, windmill it off into the distance.
I don't know what movies you've been watching, but jump back into this because that is the spiciest of turn cards.
Both players with a pair. Good pair as well. Petkovic with second pair, Nut Kicker, Nut Flush Draw, Soyagaz top pair and a flush draw, but it goes check on the turn.
Where is the rest of this pot, Grant? There's like no money has gone in. A min bet on the flop, check on the turn. We've got top pair against second pair. We got Nut Flush Draw against third Nut Flush Draw. Where's all the money?
I don't know, but let's talk about what has happened so far.
Okay.
On the flop, Soyagaz makes the obvious decision to check call with the queen 10. The bet sizing and the choice to bet from Petkovic are both pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You could argue for a check. You could argue for a bigger bet. But what do you think about what Petkovic did, the min bet into 850?
It's really surprisingly small and throws me off a little bit. I'm concerned that this sometimes is going to induce from hands we don't want to induce from, i.e. this one.
Sure.
Like top pair type hands that we have some equity against. We've got a backdoor flush draw. As we see, that's going to start to come in on the turn. We have other outs. We may get ourselves blown off this hand sooner than we want to sometimes because a hand like Queen 10 has to at least consider raising, right?
Yeah, that is a pitfall, but there are some advantages to this bet. I mean, we get to just knock out a lot of random equity. Any bad king, jack, or 10 that has equity against us, those hands are just going to go away, and that's fine.
It's so cool how that can work.
Yeah.
For 150.
Yeah, it's a good price to give ourselves to accomplish a lot of equity denial.
We also are kind of forcing a billion hands that have a tiny bit of equity to call.
Yeah, that are, a little bit better than the hands I mentioned, but worse than our hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool too. Like 2 diamonds, just the back door, maybe enough to call 1 small bet.
Or 2 spades or 2 hearts. Yeah.
But since we have diamonds, would be great if we could keep diamonds around. Right?
Yeah.
Also, if we know a diamond's coming on the turn, how could we? We know, but how could we? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly. So do you think Soyagaz should raise once this bet is so small?
I'm guessing the solver's going to want Soyagaz to raise here. My inclination is not to raise because of all the potential problems it creates, i.e. we could get 3-bet. We could get 3-bet bluffed here with a big draw or something like that where we just don't have to. That sucks. We also inflate the pot out of position in a way that's going to make turns and rivers very difficult to play when we continue. If we just win the hand, fine. But we don't have that much to protect against, and we've essentially aces and kings are the real problem, right? It's not that bad. My inclination is to call, but I worry sometimes that I call too much here and don't really consider a raise nearly enough.
Yeah, I agree. My inclination is to call as well. I think calling is fine, which Soyagaz did. You can't really find too much fault in that.
Right.
Now, we can deny some equity from hands like, I don't know, ace king. That's not so bad to deny that equity when we raise.
Sure.
I think raising would have been fine. I think it would have been weird to raise if Petkovic had bet like 450.
Right.
But against 150, it makes a little bit of sense. Calling's fine though, right?
It cannot be bad.
So we head to the turn. And the surprising thing here is the check back from Petkovic. I don't know what Soyagaz's plan is. I would guess to check call. You could justify a check raise if you wanted to. It's probably unnecessary with this much showdown value and the flush draw. What do you make of Petakovic checking back, picking up this equity?
It's really surprising. You would think, I would think, I should say, that he'd be trying to build the pot up a little bit in case a diamond came. That would be incredible. But as it turns out, holy mackerel, it doesn't even matter. He doesn't need to build the pot, but he would never know that if a third diamond came, right? But building the pot means you can get a much bigger bet in on the river when you make the nuts, which is totally doable here. We have a reasonable hand, and we only bet 150, so we could charge. We don't have to bet a lot even, but we could charge things that have some equity, i.e. the Jack 10s of the world and the other gut shots that are out there. And even the small pairs that might come along more, or we could just knock out some of their equity. Small pair meaning like bottom pair on the flop that has 5 outs. Like, why just give it a free 5 outs when you could charge it a little something and either we get paid or we win the pot right now. Both are fine.
Yeah, I agree. I would have expected a bet. I mean, it's the thing that you achieve is deception.
Big time.
If a diamond comes, Sawyer Guys isn't going to put you on a flush. No, you're going to get paid anyway because Sawyer Guys has the third nut
but
flush
usually
draw.
It's going to be really, if we end up raising the river because a diamond comes and Sawyer Guys has like king queen without diamonds, like it's going to be a really confusing spot for him. Now maybe he can find a fold anyway, but he might find more calls.
So where's the rest of this pot?
Yeah, it feels like it's like a third of the size it's supposed to be.
You're about a third of the size you're supposed to be, unless you use the link in our Twitter feed for Nitro Betting.
What?
You become your full self. You could,
You actualize?
Yeah, you actualize using the link in our Twitter feed when you sign up for Nitro Betting, because that gets you access to all of our cool promotions, which include the monthly tournament. It includes all sorts of cool sports betting promos, March Madness, I'm sure they'll do something there, Super Bowl, World Cup, all of the fun stuff. Get on Nitro Betting. We'll see you there.
Sometimes I worry that we promise too much, but saying that people will go 3 times their height, that I can get behind.
It's true.
Diamante, 9 on the river. Petakovic getting there the unconventional way. Sawyer Guys might struggle to find too much 9x in Petakovic's range, so definitely couldn't fault him for firing out some value here with the Queen 10.
350.
Yep, does go for 350, just around half pot. Little under. Now, Petakovic, pretty clear value raise versus this size. It's going to be a lot of Queen X. We probably expect 9x to bet bigger, but this is just going to be a bunch of Queen X, some bluffs, some Jack 10, King Jack type stuff, 10-8. But yeah, Ace 9, clear value here. Puts in all of his time bank chips before eventually raising. It's a bit bait, isn't it? I've decided immediately that I need at least 3 minutes to decide whether I'm going to bluff or not. Doesn't really check out, does it?
Story doesn't really check out, no.
And then I'm going to act before I've even used 1 time bank's card's worth of time.
It is.
Yeah, don't like. Not a huge fan of the time bank play there, but makes it 2.6 million. Absolutely monstrous raise. 7x and then some. And I think Sawyer Guys is just going to be able to get away from this one. Very unconventional line to take with bluffs. Expect most of our bluffs to have some kind of equity on the turn. So this would have to be a complete airball. He'd have to just be turning some, I don't know, random ace highs into a bluff. Like all of his king highs and stuff have some kind of straight draw that could bet the turn. Then they just don't really play this way. 9x just really makes a lot of sense as well. Bet flop, small, turn check, river trips, raise versus a bet. Story checks out. Sawyer Guys giving it a good old think, having a 10. 10 of diamonds not super relevant if we think that like Jack 10, King 10 of diamonds type hands are going to barrel the turn, because they would have obviously had a bunch of equity. So it'd be more some kind of offsuit bluff. But again, like I just think king 10, king jack 10, 8 all happy to barrel the turn.
Would not be surprised to see Surigaz come up with either a call or a fold in this spot against the incompetent opponent. Hijack open.
This is just so underbluffed because you got to
For
think
sure,
as well.
yeah.
Soyagaz can have 9x himself. He might not bet small on the river, but not many people are trusting that kind of. Oh yeah, I'll just make 100% sure read out of that timing tell. Even though if it's not a 9, it's most likely to be a queen. So it's like, okay, I don't think he has a 9, and I also think I can get a queen to fold. Like, yeah, I just don't really get that vibe off this kind of line.
Turn went check, check, river probe for 40%. Facing a raise of 2.6 million. Does flick in the call.
I'm shocked at that. I really thought that.
That's a big raise, and somehow the miracle happened, and he actually got called on 2.6 million, Jonathan.
I can't imagine Petakovich was ever thinking this is the kind of hand that would call him.
No, it seems, we'll talk about this more, but it seems that he was probably targeting a weaker trips. But let's talk about Soyergaz's bet first.
Okay.
What do you make of this bet, this third of the pot bet with a medium top pair?
I mean, the 9 is a pretty bad card for
It
us.
is, yeah.
Like, guess what? 9's an hour ahead. It is harder to get called by worse hands because we can now bet for value with a 9, which totally fits our whole description, our whole profile here in the big blind that called pre-flop and called on the flop.
Yes.
right?
So Jackson 10s are going to be a little bit worried about this card. They're like, well, now I can't beat anything. That
Jackson
sucks.
10s are terrible hands to call with. They block the gut shots.
The open
They
ender.
lose- Yeah, what'd you say?
And the open ender.
And the open ender, right? And they lose to all the obvious value.
Right. So I can't really see what Soyergaz is trying to get called by. Just heroed by ace high or a really weak pocket pair or something.
He's betting small enough that maybe he thinks he's going to force jacks and 10s and even other smaller pairs to just call sometimes. That's all I can think of, but I don't know if they will. For 350, it's 2 blinds. Maybe they just call anyway.
In the end, this 9 is a negative event for Queen
It
10,
is.
and Queen 10 should treat it as such. You can check call because Petakovich only put in 150K on the flop. He might feel like I can get him to fold a lot of random stuff with my air, and so you can pick off a bluff with Queen 10, and I feel like that's a better plan.
I mean, Petakovich could, in theory, be representing trip 9s, although he has it this time, if we check, right? He's like, I missed my draws, but I'm going to fire away here because I'm going to get him to fold some tiny pair.
Yeah.
Right? That's reasonable.
I think that's a better plan.
I like it better, too. I think there's more value in that plan than betting ourselves.
Instead, we end up here. Should we have ended up here when Petakovich raises to 2.6 million? Should Petakovich go this big? And should he raise at all?
Okay, first of all, I think he has to raise. His hand is way too good. This pot is way too small so far. And this bet on the river is also pretty tiny. It's 350 into 1.1. It looks like a queen. Or maybe it's like trying to induce with trip 9s. Whatever it is, our hand is very strong, and it's hard to believe you would assume most of the time full houses, which is the only thing we're losing to, is going to choose a bigger sizing, hoping itself to get called by trip 9s, because we as Petakovich absolutely can have trip 9s based on how we played the hand.
Yeah.
Now, I think what Petakovich is doing is now, with this sizing, incredibly large. He's just targeting other trip 9s. He's like, boy, if you have a 9, are you going to be able to fold it, man?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
tough to do.
I don't think you should fold a 9. Like, you have to call with something, right?
Right.
If you're Soyergaz. So I think this is interesting. I mean, obviously there's fewer 9s than queens combinatorially because it's harder to have a 9 when there's 2 on the board.
Right.
So you're going to get called less frequently if Soyergaz is going to fold a queen and call with a 9, but you're going to get a lot of value. So I think it's probably okay to choose this sizing for that reason.
It's so big. It's almost shocking to me how big it is, but I agree. It's probably right. Maybe we think also, cool, I make it 1.4, a queen folds anyway. But a 9's going to call that, and since it's also going to probably call 2.6, let's get all the value. I think this is probably a great play.
Guess what? You don't need him to have a 9 to get called.
How?
He
Why?
also calls with not even his best queen.
No! Why?
It's a great question. I mean, it's because the story is strange, I
It is.
guess. Like, so
Sort
your guys
of.
may be thinking when you size it like this, from a fundamental perspective, you're supposed to have a full house to do this, I guess. Maybe ace 9 or a full house are all that Petakovich would actually do this with. And so your guys got a little unlucky. Who knows?
Maybe.
But you still have to use distribution, right? We don't have a very strong hand in our distribution.
You don't have to use distribution.
Okay, but
right?
you
There's,
should.
there's some players you don't have to use it against, and it's probably right not to.
Yeah.
But distribution helps and is always there, and something we should at least be thinking about in these spots.
And we
right?
have, although combinatorially less likely than a queen, we have many trip nines in our range out of the big blind that we can call with.
We also have a 10 in our hand, which it isn't a big deal because it isn't like a lot of action when in on the flop and on the turn, almost no action. But still, we block some of the hands that might feel like they can bet the flop with, right? The 10 blocks some of the straight draws.
Yeah.
And like, that's not great either.
No,
really.
it's not. I mean, when facing such a massive bet, and if the spot is at all ambiguous, why would we put this much money in when the pot is relatively small right now?
We blocked one combo of 10-9 suited, sucker. How do you feel about that? How you like me now?
Yeah. I can see how you could talk yourself into categorically not believing that Petakovich can have that much value here. But
Yeah.
I still don't think it's worth calling with one of the weaker hands that we have that we bet for value on the river.
The question we have to ask ourselves is, do we believe Petakovich would bet other nines with this size? Other trip nines specifically? Because if not, now it gets a little trickier, right? If it's only ace 9 plus, well, full houses don't make any sense based on this line, right? So now we're sitting there like we kind of only lose to ace 9. Ew.
I mean, maybe, but we have to really know that.
Right. We have to be right that like king 9 isn't there, jack 9 isn't there. When we choose a 350 sizing, I don't know. Those things are supposed to be targeting trip nines for value, though,
Yeah.
right? And like, okay, we can have other nines, but we have those nines too.
It's just a lot better to have a 9 than a queen here, and I
Of
think
course it
I
is.
think we should fold.
Me too. We have all the nines that we could bet with. We're only betting with queens and nines if we don't even think we should be betting with queens.
No.
If that's true, then oh my God, we should fold. We should have even been here in the first place.
Well, here we are, and then we lost a massive pot.
Oh no.